Freedom Guy 55 here again. Well, you hear from Christians a lot, right? That when you talk about slavery or whatnot, you kind of hear them talk about how, well, God didn't directly state that he was against slavery in the Bible. Well, I would state that, yes. I guess he didn't directly state it through his own voice or whatnot. But I don't really think that that actually helps your argument that God didn't advocate slavery. Or doesn't advocate slavery. That you want to believe that God doesn't advocate slavery. I don't think it helps your argument. Even by stating that he didn't directly state it. I don't really recall that God actually really ever directly stated that he was against slavery. But it still doesn't help the argument at all, to my perspective. That's what I'm stating right now. And I have 3 points on why that doesn't actually help the argument. And these 3 points actually do really indicate that God does have to be a person. If he is infallible, he does have to be a person that has to advocate slavery because of his allowance of slavery. And I have 3 points on this issue. First point happens to be that God has entrusted people to write the Bible, a particular form of a text that gives you his perspective on the forms of morality. And these very people who he entrusted to give his morality to you and to everybody else through time, to stand the test of time, also wrote in the Bible, which is supposed to be a moral guide, that slavery is okay. So the very people that are supposed to dictate God's morals and write God's morals in a book that is supposed to be your guide for morality, wrote in the Bible that slavery was okay, without God saying anything to the contrary. He had to have advocated it. Otherwise, he would have had to say something. If he didn't say something, then in some way, shape, or form, he had to have advocated it. Second point. It happens to deal with God doesn't have any problem to tell people what he does like and what he doesn't like and what he wants from you and what he doesn't want from you. He has no problem to tell you these particular types of laws. He has no problem to tell you that you cannot be gay. He has no problem to tell you that you cannot work the Sabbath, and so on and so forth. He has no problem to tell you these things. And he tells you over 100 laws. But yet, within all his infallible nature, he forgot to say that slavery was wrong. That just doesn't seem right, man. He had to have advocated it if he were to remain silent, if he has no problem telling people what is moral and what isn't moral. Third point. That if you threw out both of these and just discarded them, you have to also know that even in the Bible, God actually has no problem directly communicating with a prophet, and he has no problem giving out creating all of these extreme miracles. He has no problem to do so, to save slaves. He's done it in the Bible. We've seen it. It's during the whole story of Moses, remember? That particular story of Moses. There's many stories, but that particular story of Moses. He has no problem to turn the water supply of Egypt into blood. He has no problem parting the Red Sea so that the slaves can escape. He has no problem even going to the extreme length of killing every firstborn children of Egypt. He has no problem with that to save the slaves. Well, fast forward about 1,000 some odd years to World War II, where the Nazis treated the Jews like slaves, and even worse than that. And throughout that whole time, God remains silent. That seems quite widely odd. We see it in the Bible that he has no problem giving out miracles and telling people directly, telling some sort of prophet directly to free the slaves. He has no problem with that. But yet he had a problem with it here during the Holocaust? And even going to the length of also the Africans within other countries and even my own country, America. There was slavery. There was slavery here. Really bad one. And as we see, God has no problem with giving out miracles, but not a one to save these slaves? And even after the slavery had ended, God allowed Christians to kill other Christians and continue to have this kind of persecution going on even after slavery had ended? Without doing any miracles whatsoever as big as we see within the Bible to save individuals from a slavery-esque kind of lifestyle? See, that's the problem with that. If God were to remain silent, he would not only have to allow, but advocate this kind and condone this kind of form of slavery. He would have to. Because he has no problem giving out his work to save them, as we see in the Bible. So, those are my points. And those are the reasons why I have a really hard time to believe that God is against slavery. Well, that's pretty much it. And I thank you for your time, and have a nice day.